Nobara was someone who broke the mold for what a female character in shonen should aspire to. Despite being alongside two rising sorcerers, Yuji and Megumi, she truly didn't shy away from the big moments, and Gege showed that she's completely deserving of being on equal footing with them. From landing a black flash on Kechizu to injuring a special grade cursed spirit in Mahito, it left me wondering, how strong would Nobara be if she lived? In this video, I'm going to speculate on Nobara's potential growth past the Shibuya incident arc and what she would be capable of if not for her untimely demise. I want to make it clear from the get-go that I'm a big fan of her and really hope she makes a return, but even if she doesn't, this video serves to do her justice on how important she would have been. When thinking of the power of a sorcerer on an individual level, the curse technique is not the issue, rather it's more so the mindset on how they use it. I think nothing encapsulates this concept more than when Gojo is lecturing Megumi about his own fighting style. He notes that his skill and potential are higher than Yuji's, but his mental limitations are what's ultimately holding him back. Gojo calls him out for being too much of a team player when that's not how battles are won or lost. As quoted by the strongest himself, being a Jujutsu sorcerer is an individual sport, not a team one. We see that when Megumi doesn't get hung up on this, he's capable of unleashing the power of his domain expansion and completely overpowering a special grade cursed spirit, the Finger Bearer. Although his domain is incomplete, this is a huge leap considering that a seasoned sorcerer in Nanami claims that he most likely would never be able to do something like this. And when it comes to mindset, Nobara is someone who doesn't shy away from expressing herself. What makes her a great character and what sets her apart from other female characters in shonen is exactly what would mold her into a high-level Jujutsu sorcerer. Whenever her back is up against the ropes and her morals are questioned, she truly is not afraid of stepping up. During her fight with Momo during the Goodwill event, she argues against her claims that women in Jujutsu are meant to be perfect and not skilled, to which she literally counters saying that she loves the fact that she's both beautiful and strong. During her fight with Eso and Kechizu, she's able to tap into the literal core of cursed energy itself and land a black flash alongside Yuji, something that we know takes an astronomical amount of focus and control of cursed energy. And in her fight with Mahito, she's able to diagnose his abilities on the spot and hit him directly with resonance, the only other attack in this series apart from Yuji's that we've ever seen to permanently damage him. So it's clear that she's incredibly confident in herself and has all the qualities of a strong sorcerer. Even more so than this, she has one of the most interesting perspectives on death in the entire series. She's someone who comes off as rough around the edges, but if you're important to her and a special part of her life, then she'll protect you with everything she has. She gives importance to the people in life that are vital to her, and the rest she couldn't really care about. Sound like other powerful figures that you know? Now, don't get me wrong, she's not evil, she just has a view on life that puts her in the same relative headspace as them. And while I do think she does have her shortcomings, like not being from an overpowered lineage as we see throughout her fights, the utility and cunning that she brings to the table lends credence to the fact that she could wreak havoc if given the proper training and time to grow stronger. We know that based on the essence of her curse technique, she has the ability to affect the souls of her opponents and disrupt them with her nails. And while this works great at long range or when she has a set plan, it kind of falls apart if someone closes the distance and attempts to attack her from close range. We see her get bodied by Haruta, a fairly weak sorcerer in his own right, who we don't know a whole lot about. Other than that, he simply gets lucky breaks due to his curse technique. But her hand-to-hand combat is super inconsistent as we see her physically take on the likes of Mahito and the Death Painting brothers, but then needs to get bailed out by Nanami against Haruta. Regardless, I believe that if she trained her hand-to-hand combat skills more and obtained further proficiency in cursed energy reinforcement, this would allow her to be a threat to her opponents at both close and long range. Similar to someone like Geto, who typically fights at a distance but purposefully baited that old man he was fighting during the hidden inventory arc. So by this very logic, I would think that she wouldn't be the kind of frontline fighter that Yuji and Megumi are. In her few fights in the story, she plays the role of support, and even more so than this, she's really effective at it. In the fight fight with the death painting brother, she was able to match Yuji's aggressiveness and actually counter the blood poison that Kechizu affected her with. And in the Shibuya incident arc, we see in her fight against the clone of Mahito that she could damage the soul of the real one and give Yuji an opening to attack. Okay, so we've established that she's much more comfortable at long range, and even if improving on her physical capabilities, it's likely she would prefer to fight at a distance. We see her attacks like Hairpin and Resonance dealing some major damage to her opponents, but that's only if they ultimately connect. This is of course all fine when dealing with weaker opponents in the series, as we've seen, but any curse worth mentioning probably won't be getting hit directly by her nails, meaning that she'll have to get creative with how her abilities are utilized. I think it would be a pretty natural progression for Nobara to be able to direct the nails with her own cursed energy and send them at her opponents from unique and unsuspecting angles. I think this combination of her increased physicality and refinement of her curse technique would easily put her in the same tier of power as a grade 1 sorcerer. And as I mentioned before, her abilities are suited towards fighting with an ally, making Nobara a pain for any grade 1 curse or even higher. Imagine having someone like Yuji who would be able to rush in on an opponent and barrage them with physically based attacks, all while Nobara's heat-seeking nails are constantly pressuring you, with the threat of massive damage if they land. That's an insanely scary combination to think about. Also, when I think about Nobara's complete potential in the series, I think of whether, like Mei, she could incorporate a binding vow into one or a few of her nails to exponentially increase the output of her resonance or hairpin attacks. We've already seen that her nails are able to do severe harm to a special grade threat in Kechizu, therefore multiple nails would just become a pain to ultimately deal with. And to add even more onto this is all just considering her base level abilities. What would really get interesting is when we consider what her domain expansion could possibly be. My thoughts on her domain expansion would be centered directly around the soul, just like Mahito's. We know that the prerequisite of Nobara's technique is that she needs to be in contact with some part of your body in order to do both physical and spiritual damage. When entering her domain, I think it's highly probable that your soul would link as an innate effect of the barrier. When it came time that the battle reached a critical point, Nobara would be able to swap the damage between herself and the opponent, and this would be the domain's guaranteed sure hit. This is a theory also speculated by other YouTubers as well, like Broken Ronin, and I strongly agree that this type of ability would actually suit Nobara really well, and here's why. By the very nature of her domain, Nobara would need to sustain the most amount of damage possible before reversing it onto the opponent. This is very in line with her character, since she's someone who isn't afraid of taking a beating and plays into her gritty nature. And to add on layers of complexity, her soul would also link to her allies within the domain and not just her enemies. Perhaps she could lend some of her cursed energy to her allies and give them a boost to their overall abilities. And this increase in overall power would be directly proportional to how close she is to that given person. In other words, how much that other person resonates with her. For instance, Yuji would gain a much greater power boost than someone like Principal Gakuganji, who she has no close connection with. These two abilities of her domain not only reinforce Nobara as a support type fighter, but the essence of who she is as well. As stated earlier, she cares heavily for those in her circle and disregards anyone outside of it. I believe that this domain is a perfect encapsulation of Nobara's true values. At her full potential, I don't see Nobara being able to solo a high-level special grade curse spirit, but could definitely support another strong sorcerer and make an impact in a meaningful way. With the battle against Sukuna raging on with big emphasis on his soul, now would be the perfect time for Nobara to make a re-entry into the story. But I guess we'll just have to see what Gege is cooking up for us. If you haven't, be sure to check out my video on Yuta vs Chrollo, where I discuss who would come out on top in the battle of these two copycats. Thank you so much to the members of my channel. Your support is always and greatly appreciated. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay curious, anime fam. Peace.